Forbes India Small Business Summit, presented by PhonePe Payment Gateway.
Delhi, with over 2.5 lakh MSMEs, is a thriving hub of innovation across industries. The Forbes India Small Business Summit, presented by PhonePe Payment Gateway, celebrated this spirit under the theme Delhi Means Innovation. The first panel, When Digitization Goes the Distance, discussed how small businesses can expand across Bharat.
Malika, the Moms Co has a very strong presence in India. I believe over majority percentage of your sales come from tier 2 and tier 3 cities. If you could tell us how has digitization transformed Bharat today, has transformed the way small businesses today can do their business, and how has digitization again helped you grow leaps and bounds?
Originally, the only mode of trade that people knew was retail, where penetration into tier 2, tier 3, presence in large format stores and non-large format stores required a lot of capital, right? And it was really hard for brands to do it. But then came this whole digital world with access to social media, access to, a lot of tools like Meta, where it became easier to reach out to a customer who was sitting really far, right? Connectivity to various parts made transportation easy. So that, I think, was the core of how we saw a large amount of change happen in the last 2 to 3 years. I think it just kept continuing. It started off with people with few funded startups, homegrown startups and everything coming through. And I think recently I was seeing a podcast, which just completely blew my mind, right? It was two young boys out of Uttarakhand who are sharing their story of how they are making about 10 lakhs per month. Have you seen it?
Yes, I've seen it.
It's brilliant as a podcast, right? So they make 10 lakhs every month. And, the person who's hosting the podcast is having a conversation and saying, there are people like us, engineering kar li, MBA kar liya, and still we don't make that kind of money, right? And what are you doing that you're making so much money? And his response was, I just connect buyers to sellers. And I earn money off it. So basically, it's just doing affiliate marketing.
That's the big opportunity they found out, yeah. So tell me, how's UPI and other digital payment methods empowered small businesses in Bharat? And of course, yours.
We see that 99% of the successful businesses have three main pillars that they are built on, right? Technology, mobility, and speed. And if you look at UPI, it actually has all the three checks. It has mobility because today you can forget your wallet, you can forget your card, you can forget cash, but you will never forget your phone, right?
Yes.
And similarly, in terms of speed, it is actually completely frictionless. You will go to any counter, you just scan it with your phone because you have it in your hand at all times. So I think it has all these three checks. We've seen how fast-paced commerce has been. I mean, anywhere you've seen quick commerce, right? I mean, the biggest thing is again technology, mobility, and speed. So it has of course changed the way people think of, starting from small sellers. I mean, something as small as a road pawn shop or something like that. Today, that whole idea of giving cash and then waiting for change, that whole process is completely eliminated.
All right, coming to Ankit now. Ankit, elaborate on the role fintech companies, platforms like yours play in kind of providing affordable capital to undeserved areas.
I think one of the things that we are incredibly proud about is the fact that digital payments has not just helped, to Siddharth's point, make it frictionless and easy to make payments. But what it's also done is for the same Panwala who's going to be accepting payments today digitally, earlier all his transactions were in cash. So there was no credit history for him to prove to be able to raise capital, to raise any sort of funding, right? To get loans. Now what digital payments has done for the same small micro entrepreneurs or the small businessmen is, it's with digital payments, the history of his acceptance of payments becomes sort of a signal for his credit worthiness. It sort of replaces a formal credit worthiness score for that same small business owner. And that's what a digital payment method has done. It has given access to those who earlier just did not have the means to be able to get because they could not prove. I could be doing tens of thousands of rupees worth of business, but there was no way for me to show because all my payments were in cash, all my receipts were in cash.
Beksha, you call yourself an accidental entrepreneur. You started as a home business and it has grown exponentially. You sell what, about a lakhs of bottles annually. We spoke about how digitization has impacted and led to the quick growth of businesses. But what I want to understand from you is the kind of barriers that small businesses face in adopting these digital tools. And of course, if you can share your experience, where the kind of challenges you faced while you were adopting these tools.
So I started as a home business in 2012, and there was not really that much digitization at that point in time. And getting access to these kind of enablers was difficult, and there were not too many at that point, right? Eventually, of course, with more and more SaaS companies coming in and more D2C enablers, helping D2C brands grow, it's become easier. Now, in fact, I feel that it's not that difficult for somebody to kind of go digital, because there are like the number of D2C enablers is mind-boggling, right?
Sridhar, picking up from what she just said, did you face similar challenges? How did you scale the Ayurveda Co? And what digital tools and platforms have been most effective in growing your business?
We are a D2C brand. So eventually, initially, the communication could have been possible through WhatsApp and, a team managing it. But then you eventually move on to automation. There is bot automation now available with platforms like Lime Chat and Business on Bot and a couple more, wherein you can use it as a retention tool to capitalize on your existing customers, understand the click-through rates, measure repeats. Uh, the same is also applicable, I would say, for checkouts and wallets and payment gateways, because that pretty much makes the overall commerce very easy and fast, with the money hitting your bank also pretty quickly.
All right. Vikas, coming to you now. Tell us, how can small businesses leverage e-commerce and digital marketplaces to tap into new customer bases? What tips would you have for them, and how have you done that at PSafe?
Any brand who want to start now, I think it's very easy. You go on Amazon first, test it, fail, and then you can scale it. Now, in the era of quick commerce, though it's now very difficult to get into quick commerce, but if you can get it into it, I think you can really scale faster.
I also wanted to address the logistical challenges, Sridhar, if you can come in on that. Logistical challenges and supply chain issues for rural areas. How can digitization address these? How have you addressed that?
First of all, address standardization. And there are tools available that mandate the consumer to fill in those specific sections to be able to complete the transaction. And then there are tools like GoQuick also available, which if you have saved your data with GoQuick, that would get furnished on other platforms also when you are transacting. And they also rank the user behavior with respect to the credibility of the transaction. The second is the belief or the trust in COD versus prepaid orders, specifically in rural areas. So basis the consumer transaction behavior, some tools like these give you the option to enable only COD or only prepaid options for certain PIN codes or certain consumers. So that's an additional layer of security that can be inculcated. And I think the third would be to, so these are additional tools, and like these are not available inherently with logistics partners. But what would be great to have logistics partners combine these kind of tools in their services to be able to complete the transaction.
Okay.
Because what usually happens is that there are more number of NDRs or non-deliveries, because usually in a remote or a rural kind of a setup, there would be one phone number or two phone number, but everybody would be making the purchase. And when the man of the house, let's say, is not around, OTP kaun dega, call kaun pick karega. So these kind of things could be sorted to be able to solve these issues for rural areas.
Malika, my next question to you is, how can you design mobile-first strategies for that market?
I think we have seen a couple of examples of the same before, right? So, for instance, when Jai Kisan launched and it connected all the financial institutions to farmers and small businesses in rural places, it made credit easier for all of them, right? It made credit accessible for a large set of people, which was very hard. With Meesho launching, we saw a lot of small businesses in rural, especially women, come forward to start selling whatever they were making on small patches out there, right? So I think there is enough and more that has already happened, even including, for instance, with payment digitization. you just suddenly see everybody using it, right? So for everyone who's working in your house to transferring money, I see everyone, I've actually personally seen the stage where salaries used to go in cash, and then few of them asked on the bank accounts, and now everybody says कि आप हमें phone पे Paytm कर लो, right? And so I often ask them saying that, what do you do? Like, how do you transfer this? I will send it ahead. It's so
Okay.
easy, right? And it's making so much, it's creating so much ease in the system for everybody that I think there's enough and more opportunity out there for the rural India to come up. All you need is to specifically just understand the issue which the rural India is facing, right? Like, you can't be sitting out of tier 1, tier 2 cities and projecting what is the issue you
It
have
can't
there,
be the
right?
same
So as
playbook,
long
yeah.
as you go there, understand the problem, I think there's a lot that can be done and a lot that's already happening.
Apeksha, tell me, how important is understanding the culture, the language, and all of that to expand businesses in Bharat?
Cultural behavior obviously impacts the products that are sold in a region. For example, in Bombay, Olive Tapenade sells the most in Bombay because it's a more cosmopolitan audience over there, the target audience. And like we have a sun-dried chili, garlic spread with Naga chili. That's like the highest selling is in Bangalore and the southern region because they eat a lot more spice. So I think definitely your products and what you're selling will change depending on the region that you're selling to.
Siddhant, coming to you, how can you leverage AI and automation? How are you doing that as well to improve efficiency and competitiveness? Also, how can other small businesses benefit from these technologies?
Our organization as well, we are solving such small problems through AI, and I think every business can kind of follow through on that. Some basic problems, like for example, today all the warehouse inventory distribution that we do is decided by AI. Earlier, teams used to sit whole day on Excels saying, "Ki South, I'm able to sell this, North, I'm able to sell this." Today, this happens with a click of a button in 30 seconds because the tool that we've built has all the data of the past sales, past inventory, and within 30 seconds, it kind of tells us, right? Similarly, for a lot of other aspects, like today, all our store merchandising happens through AI. There is literally no manual intervention there. It has all the attributes fit into the system, where the system tells us that today, if you're sending out stock to 30 different stores across India, this is what you should be sending out. All the pricing, discounting that we do online is now, all system driven. There's no manual depending on what we've sold, how much we've sold, etc. How many people have clicked, how many people have converted. So I'm saying the use cases are endless.
Absolutely. So, Ankit, on what he just said, tell me, what does the future of small businesses in a fully digital Bharat look like? And how can stakeholders, various stakeholders, collaborate to realize this vision?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I see as we look into the future of small businesses is the very essential public-private partnership. And I think we've done this summit now in 4 other cities. And we've
Yes.
seen the one thing that has been very heartening is to see the involvement of the government, in any of the cities that we've gone through, whether it's from the ministries, whether it's from the bureaucracy. There are, for example, in states, we've seen officers who are in charge of making it $1 trillion economy, the state itself. And I think there is so much happening towards that in the country that I think any successful future will have a very, very strong public-private partnership. The second thing that I see would be happening is solving for localization. And I think going to the earlier question also, India is not one size fits all. And I think for those who are trying to do that, I think there will be a very quick realization that that's not going to happen. Digitalization will allow you to be able to customize, whether it's by language, by region, by preferences, either ways, right? So I think digitalization will allow for that. And finally, I think I'll be amiss if I don't talk about the fact that I do look at this being a completely cashless economy. We are almost on our way there, and I
Yes.
think future will definitely take us there.
All right. And, Ankit mentioned government's participation as well. Vikas, on that point, what role does the government play? How big a role to drive digital adoption among small businesses?
So to be very quick, I think the times are up. So, I think government plays a very, very vital role when it comes to MSME. I think the first is the 45 days payment cycle. So most of the big companies who are compliant, they are making the payment in 45 days. The GEM, you can really bid now online for the government tenders and supplies. And we have also seen that the government is taking small businesses across the world and they are footing the bill for participation in the trade fairs through Make in Bharat or China Plus One strategy. I think overall the ecosystem is so strong now that any new businesses, if they know the policies, the processes, I think there are a lot to achieve. Even the women founder can get a loan from SIDBI, and so there are many. So I can go on, but there are many initiatives this government is offering us.
The second panel, One Nation, Many Consumers, helping small businesses adapt to changing preferences, explored how MSMEs can stay relevant and competitive by adapting to evolving consumer demands.
How do you think we need to adapt as an MSME to cater and understand this diversity and profit from it?
I think MSMEs intrinsically have a huge advantage over larger businesses to be able to understand, regional nuances and differences so much better. I see if you are a Colgate or a Unilever and you're trying to compete with them, they might have much larger advertising budgets and a lot more people. But I think as an MSME, the understanding you have on the ground of the tastes and preferences of the people is just so much better. And you get also so much more nimble to be able to adapt. You don't have to go back to Asia Pac headquarters and global headquarters to get permissions to make changes.
Santosh, coming to you now. So how do we really adapt to these differences in local preferences and at the same time appeal to a global audience? How do you strike that balance?
Being a small company, we always try to see how can we maximize or minimize the cost of operations and maximize the profit. So the first things I should say, the small companies to go ahead and learn from the big companies, how these big companies are able to come and personalize or localize their offerings in the respective countries and the region. There are a lot can be learned from there.
Abhishek, coming to you on the logistics part of the equation, how do you cater to specific requirements in tier 2, tier 3 cities? Because the flavor over there is very different. What are your observations and how have you adapted to this particular market in catering to SMEs in this region over the last many years?
We, as DTDC, I think we like to call ourselves as a macro, small and medium enterprise. And I like to describe that a little bit. 3.5 decades ago, when we started our business, we effectively began our business by aggregating large number of small and medium enterprises into our organization. Today, we are the only logistics company that runs a business of our size and scale across India, across the world. And most people will be surprised to know that we have 16,300 dedicated SMEs who are part of our network. So when you're on the street and you see a DTDC brand, most of it is not owned by the company. Most of it is owned by SMEs who've become a part of our network. And I think the reason that is connected and a good way to respond to your question is we realized very early on, India is not one country. If you look beyond the fact that we all are under one constitution, under one flag, each state, each territory, each community has its own kind of demand. And we realized even in a business like logistics, which becomes an essential service which SMEs require, unless you're able to cater to the demand of each region, unless you're able to cater to the demand of each consumer segment, you will not be able to do it.
Atul, coming to you and to talk about GST, which many believe has been a game changer in this space. Tell me a bit what role it has played on the ground when it comes to compliance, when it comes to transparency. What changes have you seen and how has it impacted the SME sector as a whole?
Earlier, what was happening that if you are complying with the different states, the different rules, you have to file their respective returns manually, and then you require the expertise available. The credits will not flow from one state to another state, from one regime to the another regime. And now, but with the advent of the GST, what is happening that it's a common law, it's a common understanding. You don't require a separate expertise. And then you can file because there is a complete digitization is there, which is I believe the world largest digitization project of the GST is there in India, as we know the GSTN. So you can file your returns electronically sitting at one particular place for all these states.
Mr. Goyal, what do you think it will take to encourage more MSMEs to actually take a step and focus on rural areas?
Through the principal scientific advisor to the Government of India, where Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam was the head there, Dr. Kalam had introduced a scheme that whatever innovations are done in the country, whatever research is done, whatever startups bring out the innovations, they remain closed in the files. They do not reach the ground. They don't reach the ultimate person who can get the benefit out of it. Now the government has started a scheme of RSVC, Rural Rutech Smart Village Centers. It is being done on an experimental basis, and I am very proud to say that I am putting up this pilot project in district Sonipat, very near to Delhi. I am coming from there only, and there were 14 people from the PMO office today in my village. Now, what does that center means? Whatever research is done across the country, across the globe, that software is being developed, and through the satellite system, it is being loaded in the RSVC centers.
One more point I wanted to touch upon, Ankit. How do you think they can collaborate with digital service providers like yourself at PhonePe to improve reach and engagement with customers?
With the kind of digitization of payments that we're doing itself, there is so much more of a market that's opening up. And what we are enabling to do is reach out to these merchants, for these merchants to reach out to these customers from just the fact that these markets are opening up. Right now, imagine a merchant who, some of the large organizations that some of you might have been a part of have tremendous amount of customer relationship management and other systems. But a small merchant, what do they have? Their ability to be able to identify who they're getting payments from, and because there's a trail of those from a digitization perspective, I think that goes a long way in this.
The evening came to an end with the panel unleashing a new wave of innovation in MSME product design. The session explored how MSMEs can drive creativity in product design while managing costs to stay competitive in a dynamic market.
Let's first define innovation in the context of MSME product design. What is it? Is it about affordability? Is it about functionality, or it's something else?
See, I think the way the consumer expectations, and we are all sitting consumers here, the way the consumer expectation is evolving, I don't think there's an element of there's an element of design which is restricted to only product, right? Which used to be erstwhile. You think design, you think what will my product look? I think it's about what affordability measures are related to how am I going to procure it in the context of e-commerce. Today, 40 to 45% of electronics transactions happen on EMIs, right? That's like a product design innovation on how you will make it more affordable. Today, you get a lot of deliveries in 15 minutes. That's a delivery experience optimization. We are just talking about it, and design. So I don't think it's restricted to one particular aspect. You have to look at what your consumer is asking for. Product design innovation on the product format, or design innovation on the product format, has been going on for a very long time. That comes as the first thought for everyone when they're thinking of business. But it has to cut through multiple more aspects. Also because today consumers have more choices than they ever had.
Absolutely.
When we were growing up, there were only few coffee brands we had heard of. Today, there are a lot more, including Rage, right? So, and hence, how you differentiate yourself. It could be product, it could be affordability, it could be post-purchase, it could be the way you are discovered, it could be your communication, etc. So, I think cuts across multiple more dimensions.
Absolutely.
I know it's a very theoretically sounding answer, but that's the reality.
But thank you for breaking it down for us. Bharat, coming to you now, let's get to the technology aspect of it. What role do technologies like CAD, 3D printing, and digital twins play in enabling product design for MSMEs? If you can throw some light at how at Rage you're doing that.
So I think I completely concur with Atul. It's an entire part of the the experience from the start to the finish. For us specifically, and for generally, let's just say FMCG or F&B brands or consumer brands in general, I think technology has changed everything. How you leverage technology today as a brand, especially when it comes to that cutting edge work that you do with content, number one. Number two, your store designs if you're in retail, your marketing collaterals, your point of sale materials, and also with packaging. I think if you have seen the Rage coffee jar, it's completely made in India, and in fact, it's the only D-plug metal cap jar of its kind. We conceptualized that completely in India a couple of years back. And it was all done through technology. If we did not have the resources here, including the manufacturing techniques, we wouldn't have been able to do so. So I believe it's, I think, a necessity and not an option for doing any breakthrough innovation.
All right, I've been coming to you now. Tell us, how can MSMEs use AI? Of course, everybody's talking about it, and data analytics to better understand customer needs and then design relevant options for them, relevant products for them. What tips can you give?
I think multiple things we can divide into primarily 3 categories. One is my internal operations. How can my AI part help me in automating and improving my existing processes? Like, for example, we work in the auto space. So, for example, when we work with dealers at Park Plus, like things like yard management, things like driver management, things like fuel tracking, etc. All these are internal operations. So how do I use my systems to make sure that the internal tracking works well? Second is existing customers. Now customers are coming out to you. New customers are reaching out to you. Things like chatbot, etc. are now fairly common. But so far, most of them have been used primarily to solve customer queries, at least at a basic level. But gradually, in recent times, I've started seeing a lot more chatbots which are able to sell as well. Not like I bought something from Amazon a few days back. The guy said, scan a QR code. You get either a standard warranty of 6 months or you get an extended warranty of 2 years if you can give your feedback. Yeah. It's very interesting way of getting my number, yes, which Amazon probably doesn't give today, and then going through the whole journey, putting a feedback, and so on and so forth. It's completely automated. So at a 500 rupee product, you're not only able to get a customer, but also get the reviews and everything sorted. So how do you, existing customers, new customers, and my internal operations? That's how typically I look at it.
Wonderful, wonderful insights there. Vivekanand, let me ask you the big question, and all of you are welcome to add to his thoughts. How can MSMEs strike a balance between cost efficiency, innovation, and sustainability in product design?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having us as part of this privileged forum. See, 3 things come to our mind. One, sustainability is not a cost, actually. If you look at it from a product lifecycle assessment perspective, you can actually save a lot of cost. Now, regulatory pressures have come in. Whoever MSMEs who are exporting to European Union, CBAM is going to come in, where you are expected to measure your carbon footprint. If you are using excessive energy, fossil fuels, then you are going to cut down on those costs. So in a sense, sustainability principles cut down your cost. It's going to come in from a regulatory side, but eventually the MSMEs will realize that it's actually going to cut down their cost. One. Second, there are new business lines possible, circularity principles. If I come from an agri business sector, yes, if I have to quote an example, textile industry, right? Circularity is now taken a mainstream. Yes. Many, Aditya Retail and others, where they have substituting virgin yarn with recycled yarn. And this is a cost-effective measure, right? Compared to a cotton, virgin yarn produced from a fresh cotton, recycled yarn. This is a new business line that is emerging. So the sustainability principle actually leads MSMEs to develop new business lines. And third, we are a 10-year-old organization. We are also an MSME in some sense. So I'm going to trumpet a bit about our own story.
Sure, please do.
So last week, we came up with India's first green bond from the agriculture sector. So how does it matter? We are going to use these proceeds to finance climate smart agriculture solution, right? This is a product. This is a product innovation that we have done. Considering the cost because we are trying to see whether we will get a greenium or green discount from the capital providers. At the same time, finance farmers, farmer producer organization, and agri MSMEs to adopt climate smart agriculture solution. So in that way, we are trying to innovate how we put all these 3 levers together.
All right, on that note, we'll have to wrap up. Gentlemen, many thanks for your candidness and for your valuable insights. It was a pleasure speaking to all of you. Thank you so much.
Forbes India Small Business Summit, presented by PhonePe Payment Gateway.